Hi, hello. Hello, how's everybody? Sorry, I'm fidgeting. I should be just ready to go when we start, but here I am, ready to go. How are you? Everybody good? You know, my coworker puts the computer up on this thing. Does that help with the, yeah, that's maybe a better set, huh? Hi, Dad. My faithful dad there, always a listener. How's it going, Dad? I'm fiddling still. Oh, I have another listener. Excellent. Hi, welcome to Frankenstein Tea, daily short story program for adult listeners. I apologize about yesterday. I was ready to go, but we are we are rehiring a staff position that is vacant right now. That person was our website updater. I don't want to say designer or developer, although she did do a lot of designing on it. But she definitely kept the website updated, and she has been gone for a number of months already, and the website needs an update. So she came in and volunteered her time to train us on that. So that's why I missed yesterday, Dad, and any other listeners who signed on. Really important for us to get a handle on that website, and we didn't even know the login. We really just relied on her heavy for the last, the last year or 2 years. And so without her here, we need to get up to speed on how to edit our own website. So that's what yesterday's training was. And she was a little late, and then it ran a little long, and I couldn't really leave. She was volunteering her time. And so sorry I missed it. But I did think of you, and I did try to get there. And then I was hopeful I would read later, but the day just went by. Long week, Saturday afternoon here on the East Coast, and we are wrapping up our work week at the Island Free Library. And, we made it through another week, warm week, wet, but not really rainy. And so we made it through another week of outdoor librarianship. And we love that. And we're so thankful that you do too. We're really proud that we were able to participate in everybody's safety and well-being. So we're proud of that. Okay, so this is a short story program and a chance for us to check in with each other and, maybe sit down and have a cup of tea. I wish I had a cup of tea. This is the perfect moment for me to have tea as my work week ends here. But I don't. You know what we did at the last second? We moved the plants in for the weekend. They've been out there this whole time. So we moved in the plants, and that put us a little out of breath and a little out of time. So here I am, but I have a story to read, and I read from this week. This is great short stories by African American writers, edited by Christine Rudisell and Bob Blaisdell, Dover Publications, Dover Thrift, 2015. I read from this week, and as I said to you when I read, I had read other stories that I liked. And so here's one of them. Here we go. Condemned House by Lucille Bohem. Was originally published in the Journal of Negro Life, June 1939. Condemned House. Dusk was falling across the Harlem River like a blanket of cold mud. The sky was dirty with fog. You slipped on the freezing carpet of slush once or twice, but you didn't notice. You were too tired. A big ache filled your thoughts. You saw the street ahead of you, but it looked small, dingy, like it was far away. You stared at the kids teasing bonfires along the curb, running their fingers through the flames, chasing each other, dashing into the streets between great groaning trucks. Your nostrils widened, sucking in familiar odors, the oily smell of the fish store on the corner, cooking grease, cheap gasoline, King Kong, garbage, the stale smells of poverty. On a nearby stoop, a gang of boys and girls giggling, yawning, Nothing to do. Not enough change among them for a tune on the piccolo. Somewhere a radio beat out the rhythm of Count Basie's 1 o'clock jump, music that throbbed at the pit of your stomach. Men lolled outside the candy store, no work, nothing to do. The thought of it burned fiercely in your brain. You walked as far as your own stoop, down toward the end of the street. Across the way were the condemned houses, half a block of them. They stood there sagging against each other like tired women in a subway jam, ready to collapse. Some of the windows were gaping black holes where the boards had been chopped away for firewood. An iron girder held two of the walls apart over a dark alleyway that looked like a missing tooth in the long row. In the end house was a big, jagged opening where the stoop used to be. Ruins of brick and plaster cluttered the floor. An ugly black seam scarred the face of the house from the ground almost to the roof. You couldn't make out if it was a crack in the wall or only a heavy dirt stain. They, too, were out of a job, these rotten shells of houses. They were mean-looking, like people who get old and sick and useless. Out of a job, you shivered. There were $4 in your pocketbook. You'd been saving up for weeks, stretching the relief check like a worn rubber band over the rent and the food and the unpaid debts. It was like hanging onto a tuft of grass with a flood raging around you. But you had managed to get those $4 together. You had hoped maybe you'd find a job in one of the 6th Avenue agencies if you had money enough for the fee. But something seethed in your brain. It had happened at that last agency where you had gone after 3 hours of steady searching. You were too tired to stretch your eyes over the mob around the door reading the cards. You went straight in, climbed 2 long flights of stairs, and asked for a house job, part-time, sleep-in, anything. The man behind the dark wood partition was sweaty and rolled up blue shirt sleeves. He looked fagged out, stared at you with dead gray eyes. "Now see here, girlie," he said in a tired voice. "You're just wasting your time and mine. If I wanted black girls, I'd have said so on the cards, wouldn't I? Why don't you take the trouble to—" You didn't hear the rest. There was hot acid boiling inside you from your stomach to the nape of your neck. You rushed downstairs, hurried along the avenue, too mad to cry. The $4 were still in your pocketbook. You opened the change purse, took them out, and counted them slowly. Then you rolled them into a tight little sausage and tucked them back. The rent agent would grasp at them like a hungry tiger. You couldn't hold him off any longer. You stared through the boarded-up house across the way. It sulked there in the surly gloom of dusk. It wavered before your eyes like it was underwater, with bright sunspots dancing around it. You backed up and leaned weakly against the stoop railing. "Watch out," bleated a shrill voice behind you, and you jumped. A square-faced little boy pushed you out of his way and scooted across the street like he was on wheels. "Clarence!" you yelled, startled. Clarence disappeared in the big black maw of the condemned house. "Clarence, hey!" you shouted. "Didn't I tell you not to go in that there house? You stay away from there." "Grandma sent me for wood," was the reply from the yawning mouth of the old tenement. "She says if I see to tell you she wants you upstairs." You looked after him. A sick, worried feeling jumped in your throat. Kids shouldn't go into those houses, even for chopping up the rotten old boards. You wanted to call him back again, but it was no use. He was your sister's kid, And if she didn't mind, you shrugged and turned for the door of our house. Your heels dragged at you. You hated to go upstairs, to face the hungry family without a job, without food for supper. Hated to warm over yesterday's boiled rice while 6 pairs of eyes drilled through your back. Suddenly, something stunned you. You had been glaring at that big-mouthed skeleton of a house across the way, at the evil-looking scar like a knife slash up its face. Now you stiffened with a shock like a bolt of lightning. Your jaw fell open and you forgot to breathe. You saw that the dark seam in the wall of the old tenement was widening, straining apart into a jagged crack between the bricks. The wall was quivering, crumbling. The house was going to collapse. You felt like you were having a nightmare. Blinked. Didn't know if you should believe it. But there was a crack opening black and wide like in a movie earthquake, and Clarence was inside. Your heart pounded hot blood into your throat. Your knees sagged and sweat prickled your skin. You thought you would drop before you could move. Then you wrenched yourself from the stoop and sprinted wildly across the street. "Clarence!" you shrieked. "Clarence!" The wide, toothless mouth closed around you. Cans and broken bottles jabbed at your ankles. You stumbled through a chalky rug of fallen plaster and naily boards. In the back, under the rotten steps, Clarence looked up at you, scared. "The house is falling!" you screamed and grabbed him by the arms. Junk tripped you, held you up like in a terrible dream. You fought it, dragged yourself and Clarence across the floor, out toward the dim light of the front opening, into the slush of the street, splashing it on your legs as the two of you raced through the puddles to your own stoop. You held Clarence tight against you. He hung onto your coat, whimpering with fright. You watched the old house, shuddered, waited for it to collapse. The street lamp on the corner lighted, feeble against the evening fog. A truck rumbled up the block. The piccolo in the candy store rocked with Fats Waller's piano. The condemned house still stood in the darkness like a naked old woman. Its wood and plaster guts lay in ruins on the floor. The ugly scar was slashed up its face like it had been ever since you could remember. You squinted at it, but couldn't make out in the dark if it was really a crack or only a heavy dirt stain. You frowned, open-mouthed, and shook your head in wonder. Your arms slacked around Clarence's shoulders. He had stopped whimpering, was calm, had already forgotten the scare. He looked up at you, puzzled. Then he looked at the house. "It ain't falling," he exclaimed. He thought you had played a joke on him. "Ah, you ain't so funny," he growled sullenly. With the sudden impulse of a child, he slipped out of your grasp like an eel and dashed across the street, mocking you with laughter and yelling, "House is falling, house is falling, house is..." His voice and his body were swallowed up in the greedy black mouth of the tenement. Worried, you watched again. The house was still there, crumbling, rotting, biding its time. Not today. Perhaps tomorrow it might go. Maybe next day, maybe next year. Suddenly you hated the old house as you would loathe a person who slowly, coolly plotted murder. You wanted to claw it to pieces. You wanted to dig your nails into the cement and tear it brick from brick. A heavy sigh rose and fell in your chest. Your throat made a flat sound like a chuckle, and you shook your head and smiled. Why in the world should you have thought it was going to fall in when there it was, still standing, big as life? "I must be going nuts," you told yourself. You turned and pushed open the door leading to the hallway of your house. You climbed upstairs, wondering at yourself. What had put such a crazy notion into your head? Scaring the kid like that? What on earth made you do it? The useless old tenement had been there all your life. Why were you suddenly so sure that it must come down? What was it that made you feel deep inside that somewhere, somehow, you must someday help build decent houses where poor people like yourself could live? That was Condemned House by Lucille Boehm, June 1993, 1939. Gosh, done, I'm tired. June 1939, originally published. Good stories in this book. Good stories. You could count that as part of our Read Woke Challenge. If you're one of our Facebook followers, you see the Read Woke Challenge on our Facebook page. If you haven't seen that yet, head over to our Facebook page and check that out. All right. Thanks for coming to Frankenstein Tea. I'm going to show you my mask today because I like it and I think it's important. I saw that New York City open voting, early voting today, and boy, lines are long in New York City. But they're hanging in there. They're bringing their chairs. They got tea. They got food. They're waiting in those lines to vote. Maybe that was yesterday. Did it open on a Saturday? I could be looking at old news. I don't know. All right. Wear your mask. Wash your hands. Keep your distance. Keep your head up. Keep smiling. Smiling under my mask. Think kind thoughts. Take a shower. Get some exercise. Eat a great meal tonight. Eat something really yummy after this long week. Be well. See you tomorrow. Thanks for coming. Peace.